Probably not all Dutchmen are stubborn, notwithstanding the fact that stubbornness is accounted one of their national characteristics along with many virtues. But if some Dutchmen lacked stubbornness, the general average of that intangible was maintained in the person of Hendrik Vandermeer. As practiced by him, stubbornness became a fine art. It also became his chief avocation. His vocation was that of rubber planter in Sumatra. In that, he was successful, but it was his stubbornness that his friends boasted of to strangers. So, even after the Philippines were invaded and Hong Kong and Singapore fell, he would not admit that the Japanese could take Netherland East India, and he would not evacuate his wife and daughter. He may be accused of stupidity, but in that he was not alone. There were millions in Great Britain and the United States who underestimated the strength and resources of Japan, some in high places. Furthermore, Hendrik Vandermeer hated the Japanese, if one could hate what one looks upon contemptuously as vermin. "Wait," he said, "it would not be long before we chased them back up their trees." His prophecy erred solely in the matter of chronology, which was his undoing. And the Japanese came, and Hendrik Vandermeer took to the hills. With him went his wife, who had been Elsje Verschoor, whom he had brought from Holland 18 years before, and their daughter Corrie. 2 Chinese servants accompanied them, Lum Kam and Sing Tai. These were motivated by 2 very compelling urges. The first was fear of the Japanese, from whom they knew only too well what to expect. The other was their real affection for the Vandermeer family. The Javanese plantation workers remained behind. They knew that the invaders would continue to work the plantation and that they would have jobs. Also, this greater East Asia co-prosperity appealed to them. It would be nice to have the tables turned and be rich and have white men and women to wait on them. So the Japanese came, and Hendrik Vandermeer took to the hills, but not soon enough. The enemy was always right behind him. They were methodically tracking down all Netherlanders. The natives of the kampongs where the Vandermeers stopped to rest kept them informed. By what natural or uncanny powers the natives knew while the Japanese were still miles away is beside the question. They knew, as primitive people always know such things, as quickly as more civilized peoples might learn them by telegraph or radio. They even knew how many soldiers composed the patrol, a sergeant, a corporal, and 9 privates. "Very bad," said Sing Tai, who had fought against the Japanese in China. "Maybe one time an officer is a little human, but enlisted men, never. We must not let them catch." He nodded toward the 2 women. As they went higher into the hills, the going became bitter. It rained every day, and the trails were quagmires. Vandermeer was past his prime, but he was still strong and always stubborn. Even had his strength given out, his stubbornness would have carried him on. Corrie was 16 then, a slender blonde girl, but she had health, strength, and endurance. She could always have kept up with the men in the party. But with Elsje Vandermeer, it was different. She had the will, but not the strength, and there was no rest. They would scarcely reach a kampong and throw themselves down on the floor of a hut, wet, muddy, exhausted, before the natives would warn them away. Sometimes it was because the Japanese patrol was gaining on them, but often it was because the natives feared to let the enemy find them harboring whites. Even the horses gave out at last, and they were compelled to walk. They were high in the mountains now. Kampongs were far apart. The natives were fearful and none too friendly. Only a few years ago they had been cannibals. For 3 weeks they stumbled on, searching for a friendly kampong where they might hide. By now it was obvious that Elsje Vandermeer could go but little farther. For 2 days they had come upon no kampong.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.